Gita is a conversation between two yogis at a most improbable place, in the middle of a war and a strange topic of conversation, Karma Yoga.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Before we get into Karma Yoga, let me walk you through the context as quickly as possible. In the first chapter, the writer, the poet Vedavyasa described the battlefield, Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, the holy land and the land of actions, Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, horses, elephants, and the young men and the women, eager to test their ideas, eager to take on each other. And Arjuna requested Krishna to take the chariot center stage. He wanted to see who were these people who were willing to put their lives and blood in this war, knowing very well none had a chance to compete with Krishna and Arjuna together on one side. Then why were these people so eager to get into this duel? But he didn't see enemies out there. What he saw were the faces of his cousins, his teachers, and mostly his friends. Am I committing a mistake? He thought to himself. The duality struck, and immediately, without any thought, he told Krishna, "Oh Krishna, are we on the right path? Or are we committing a mistake?" In fact, he thought even Krishna was making a mistake by enduring this war. Krishna was obviously surprised with this sudden change in the mood and the sudden rise of weakness in Arjuna. As a friend, Krishna thought for a moment about what Arjuna said and he allowed him to make up his mind. Even in the middle of the war, there was no rush. Krishna took it as an opportunity for Arjuna to really understand who he was, what he felt, and he waited for him to say what exactly he wanted to say. Arjuna went on to describe his point of view. He obviously deemed his family, his friends, and his teachers as the most precious assets of his life. If he took on this war, he would be someone who destroyed the family, Varna Sankar, someone who destroys the family. He had many ideas based on his upbringing, sanskaras, that he had learned from the very best. Confused and lamenting, he walked back to the rear side of the chariot and sat there lifeless, as if the blood drained off his veins. Having seen the armies, the truth finally dawned upon him that war was imminent, that there was no going back now. He finally surrendered to the driver of his chariot and the driver of his soul. And he said the words in the seventh verse of second chapter. He said, Karapanya dosho pahata swabhava prichhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta yachreya syanishchitam ruhitan me shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I'm inflicted by miserly weakness. Miserly because he was seeing the prospect of losing his most precious assets, his family. I'm asking you, for my heart is baffled in the context of religion. What is religion? What is the right path for me? I'm asking you to decide and tell me the honorable path. I'm your disciple and I surrender unto you. Shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. I'm your disciple and I surrender unto you. In a way, Arjuna was urging Krishna to review the situation once again. Maybe everything is not lost yet. Maybe we can save ourselves from making a grave mistake. Of course, Arjuna thought, what else Krishna had said? No one in their right mind can support a war as it is. And in this particular case, it's not even a war against enemies. It was a war within the family, against the very teachers who taught the art of war, and all the friends. There's no one here who's unrecognizable. Krishna took a pause. Now that he was formally appointed as a teacher by no less than the biggest archer, the biggest warrior, Arjuna himself was surrendered unto him. He weighed that the situation demanded a quick response. But he was talking to Arjuna. He must be detailed enough to convince a yogi, Nidra Ajay Arjun, someone who had won the sleep itself. Arjuna was the example of dedication, control, and focus himself. So Krishna took his time and explained everything in second chapter of Gita. Now, many people say second chapter itself is the completion of Gita, which is kind of true because Krishna covers everything that he needed to say, that Arjuna needed to hear. At the same time, he knew it was a lot. So in the beginning of chapter 3, Arjuna raised a couple more questions. He said, Jayasi cheta karmana te mata buddhir janardana tatakim karmani ghore mam niyo jayasi keshava. After hearing Krishna in chapter 2, Arjuna concluded that whatever Krishna said, it meant intelligence is better than actions. Thus he argued, if intelligence is better than actions, in your opinion, O Krishna, then why are you engaging me in these acts of war, these undoable, unthinkable actions? Confused with the information overload and bogged down with the situation at hand, he went on to further add. He said, Vyamishrena eva vakyena buddhim mohayasi eva me tat ekam vad nishchitya yena shreya aham apriya. As I said, this is a conversation between two yogis, a fascinating conversation. This conversation is what Karma Yoga is all about. As we know, there are many types of yogas. In the scripture, we start with Hatha Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Nada Yoga. And they say Karma Yoga is the epitome of yogic practice. Krishna himself advocated Karma Yoga, and in the context of Karma Yoga, Arjuna said, your mixed messages are kind of confusing me. Vyamishrena eva vakyena buddhim mohayasi eva me. Your mixed messages are confusing me. Therefore, decide one thing and tell me clearly that brings me honor. Tat ekam vad nishchitya yena shreya aham apnuyam. Decide one thing and tell me clearly that brings me honor. Krishna did realize that he probably said too much in too little time. And he appreciated it may be hard on Arjuna to comprehend all this. The reason I'm saying this, if Arjuna himself, a yogi, was unable to understand Krishna speaking face to face, what chance do we have to comprehend Gita from second chapter? Many people say chapter 2 is pretty much everything that Gita has to say. The problem is there is just so much that even Arjuna had to dive deeper. Thus, in chapter 3, they focused the topic of Karma Yoga, and Krishna took a step back. And he understood he needed to explain a little better. So here he said, Loke asmin dvividhanishtha pura prokta mayanagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So Krishna, having understood the confusion that still prevailed in the mind of the biggest warrior and his friend, and he talks back to him with love and respect. He says, O sinless Arjun, Anagha, O sinless Arjun. There are two types of faith in this world, as told by me previously. Jnana Yoga for the philosophers and the scientists and the mathematicians, and Karma Yoga for the yogis who are connected to me. Jnana Yogen Sankhyanam, Karma Yogen Yoginam. So, what is Karma Yoga? The ritual of actions. In chapter 2, verse 47, Krishna mentioned one of the most far reaching insights. He said, Karamanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturubhu mate sangos tavi karmani. You only have rights to the karma, never on the outcomes. In addition, neither consider yourself as the cause of your karma, nor do attach yourself to not doing your karma. The question is, what is karma? Here in chapter 3, he goes on to define karma. Karma is something that we do for the sake of yajna. He says in verse 15 of chapter 3, Yajna arthat karmana anyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Things that we do for yajna are karma. Rest everything is a bondage to our virtual box. We discussed this verse in previous section continuum and also saw that yajna is the skill building pursuit without desires, without the influence of association, and without any preconceived biases. Mukta Sangha Samachara. This primary aspect of Karma Yoga is building a skill without worldly expectations in a dispassionate manner. The question then is, how do we undertake such a pursuit? In our normal experience, we act because of the desires. In fact, passion is the drive that makes us work hard. The good news is Krishna provides a simple roadmap. This path has four stages, kind of four categories. The first is service orientation. The second is skill capture. The third is righteous application of those skills. And the fourth is riding the wave. He says, Chatur Varnam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. Four categories of humans are created by me based on qualities of the people and their righteous actions, their prescribed righteous actions. Let us take a quick look at these four categories. If you are someone like me for whom desire is a prerequisite for the actions, service orientation is the starting point. Good news is it's the easiest stage. The idea is super simple. Look around for all the things you can do to pass your time and always prioritize those things that involve physically serving someone. Of course, without any expectation of the payback. In fact, there are a lot of things that we can do to service our own family, our own home. We really don't need to sign up a volunteering mission in Africa if our own family is not getting enough of our attention. I mean, if we volunteer, that's great. But keep in mind, your actions need to be in your action field, your own physical reality. This phase is something where we start seeking pleasures in chores. It seems hard to start one of these actions. Try cleaning up your garage. But once we do, actions themselves pull us in. We feel a strange peace when we successfully finish fixing our wardrobe. The key to success in this phase is notice this peace, hold and enjoy it, and see how small chores add up in untangling our life. In Hindu tradition, this phase is called Shudra. And there was a time when people started looking down upon this phase as someone who's doing menial tasks just because they are not super qualified to take on so called bigger responsibilities. However, this is an essential phase because this is where we get the first exposure to acting without desires. If you are a procrastinator like me, I'm sure you always want to put off your chores. There's no energy because energy in our system comes from the desires. In a way, this phase gives us a freedom from the idea that actions must be driven by the desires. Not only does this phase gives us the taste of actions without desires, it also tunes us up to doing things alone without the curse of association. I doubt there is any friend who had rather be with you doing your chores. You realize that drudgery of life is something that you need to carry alone on your shoulders. In a way, it's a very humbling experience. Goes without saying, this is not a watertight phase. It's not that we are blocked into this phase for a duration. Doing it consciously, say a couple hours daily, is all we need for a few months. The idea is to establish a truth to ourselves that actions need not be driven by desires and feel the satisfaction that comes from acting without desires. Thus, even if you could afford to have someone run your errands, it is important to do them ourselves every now and then. The second category or the second stage or the phase is skill capture. The best way to focus on actions is to develop a skill. Building a skill enhances divine wealth, what Gita says, Daivi Sampat. We will talk great deal on this topic in next chapter. Suffice to say here that skills must be developed in isolation. It not only gives you more time on skill building aspect, at the same time it helps you not build expectations on yourself. As we start developing the skills and get some initial success, you will notice desires again start creeping back in. Now they are aligned to the skills that you are building. If you are working to be, say, a coder, you will start dreaming about becoming next Google. If you are working on music, you will end up hosting concerts in your dreams. All good. The key is to know and tackle these desires on their merit. Again, the skill that you will choose to build must be grounded in your physical reality, or else they might end up pipe dreams. Other thing that you will notice is the deep satisfaction when you are in the act of skill building and you see some success. This is the most important aspect of this phase. We need to learn to harness this satisfaction. In fact, the idea of yajna is nothing but the skill building pursuit. Krishna says, Saha yajna praja srishtva puro vacha prajapati anena prasavishyadvam esha vo astu ishta kamadhuk. Previously, in ancient times, Prajapati, a demigod, created the idea of yajna, ritual of actions, and explained to a community of followers. The meaning of Prajapati itself is the community leader. Prajapati, the one who's actually taking care of the community. So previously in ancient times, Prajapati created the idea of yajna, ritual of actions, and explained it to a community of followers. Practicing this as a framework to build new skills, miners, agriculture, they all got their necessities and niceties and stayed satiated. In Hindu tradition, this stage is also known as a trader, Vaishya. In a way, we are taking all that we need from Brahma, the system, and building the skills that will manifest back into the system. The third stage is application of these skills. Just acquisition of skills is not the end of Karm Yoga. We need to be able to deploy such skills righteously. As a matter of fact, the core conversation of Gita is about this aspect of Karm Yoga. Arjuna is the most skilled archer of his time, and now he is at crossroads as to if or not apply his skills for a righteous cause. We very well know what Krishna advised him to do. That's the reason lawyers and doctors are under oath to apply their knowledge for the right cause with impartiality. Journalists have a similar obligation. One of the reasons we have so much trouble with software and artificial intelligence is the coders yet don't have such obligation. They are never given a lesson on ethics. Thus, we see profit motivation taking a precedence over people's privacy and well being in social media. We see the drive towards an interface design that is often more immersive and click hungry unnecessarily. As we saw in the last section, Brahma can assign us duties only if we have the skills. The system can assign us duties only if we have some skills. The idea is to render these duties in an ethical manner. In Hindu tradition, this stage is called Kshatriya. By convention of old times, the word became synonymous with the warrior because that was the most sought after skill of those times. But in truth, the meaning is not limited to war or the warriors alone. Anyone who's called upon by the system for application of their skills and who does that in an ethical manner is a kshatriya. Kshatriya. The key aspect of righteous application of skills is the idea that such choices, amidst the conflicts of our tiny box, the reality as we perceive, expose us to underlying truth. Once we see past through the conflicts and really feel the true nature of our reality, we get a lasting handle on desires. In a way, every skilled human is a warrior because the situation always demands fighting our own desires for a payback, fame, and favors, those of well being of our offspring. The good thing is, Krishna assures to hold our hands if we ask for it, every step of the way. He will guide us to choose the right path, though the choice remains with us and the battle is not easy. Taking a righteous stance in a conflict, internal or external, is the set of keys that unlocks the door. That brings us to the fourth stage, riding the wave. The last stage is when we understand the true underlying reality. Having gone through the skill building and their righteous applications, in this stage, Karm Yoga becomes a lifestyle beyond a specific situation. We become the embodiment of Brahma. And that's the reason this state is called Brahmana. Righteous actions are part of our life and style. Gita says, at this stage, you are in a position to decide wrong from right and impart that knowledge to the rest of the community. Actions now are no more a mandatory requirement for you, but you still indulge in them to set up an example for the rest of the humans. The knowledge is self evident to you. You stay in everlasting peace. At this stage, you are not even a karma yogi. You are simply a yogi, means connected. While we are on this topic, let's take a deeper look at the actions versus expected outcomes. The idea is not only focus on actions is liberating, chasing the outcomes, on the other hand, is quite futile. Separation of actions from the outcomes. The key to understanding Karma Yoga is that actions and outcomes are two separate entities. Actions are always in a physical system, but the expected outcomes are always in the context of a metaphysical system. For example, think of a roulette table. Action is to put your money on a number. Expected outcome is you hit a jackpot. Both of them appear to be in the same single one physical system, the casino. But the question is, why do we want to win a jackpot? Why not any other number? Because hitting the jackpot means a truckload of money, money that we can use to enhance our ownership or influence in other metaphysical systems, say our family or workplace. Once we attach such desires to the actions, we lose the cause effect relationship of actions to the outcomes. In a way, we separate expected outcomes from the actions. Higher the degree of separation, the probability of expected outcomes reduces exponentially. Our senses chase certain outcomes, outcomes that our mind deems better for the survival or the growth of physical body in metaphysical systems. Based on the outcomes, we keep adjusting our actions, hoping to hit the jackpot. Continuing with our example, adjusting the actions means we change the slot or the number that we put our money on, still hoping for the jackpot. Our sensory focus always stays tied with the outcome, and thus we miss all the actions. If you want to test this in a gambling session, all you remember are the major wins, your lucky number. But you never remember all the numbers that you put your money on and lost. You don't remember the sequence that led to the win. Try to remember next time you sit on a poker game, entire history. Your focus will shift from winning the game to how the game is played, how the game works. Let us take another example from stock market. We invest in, say, Apple, hoping the stock will go up after the new product launch, the new iPad, the new iPhone. Our investment has no relationship as to what Apple is planning to do or how the overall market is going to react to that news. Our hope in this case is as good as hoping for a jackpot. You may say, yes, you can predict what kind of products are likely. Yes, you can to some extent. But reaction of stock market is like a spinning wheel. If the stock goes up, we feel happy and we claim a win. If it goes down, we take another action to sell the stock and stop losses. In a way, we have put the cart in front of the horse. Random outcomes govern most of our actions. We live in expectations of one outcome to another. We forget the actions, means we still act, but our focus is on outcomes, not actions. Karma Yoga is shifting our focus from outcomes to the actions. Another look at hypothesis. As per the hypothesis, the actions karma are driven by the internal knowledge, the righteous actions. Just the way we can infer the existence of black holes by interpreting their effects, observing our own actions can give us an indication on the nature of our own black box. As you know, black holes are invisible to our senses or the tools that extend our senses because no information comes back from them. But we know their existence and we can tell, let's say, their mass, their angular momentum, or even entropy by observing their effects or their actions. The knowledge is hidden to our senses because senses are externally focused on outcomes, which is not a bad thing because a primary purpose of senses is survival, not the exit. But more we focus on worldly outcomes, more we are bonded to our sensory reality, which also means with outcome based strategies, it is impossible to access internal hidden knowledge. In a sense, we must seek actions, karma, not the outcomes. Outcomes will be there, but they are to be seen as byproducts. The primary goal is to know yourself. As we get steadfast on this path, we realize even the nature of work is unimportant. What matters is we are constantly observing our actions and always eager to perform them. The best example is kids eagerly waiting for the playtime. They don't care of the outcomes. They don't even care what game. All they want to do is indulge in actions, video games included. Why righteous actions? Any action without desires is good if the goal is to only access our hidden self. Doing righteous actions is a smarter choice because the people around you will facilitate such acts. On the other hand, if your actions are random, outcome focused people will hinder your ritual. As a Karm yogi, you don't care about the outcomes, but people around you do. So do the right things unless you are living a solitary life in a Himalayan cave. In fact, it is easier to do the right thing except when you are in a testing situation like Arjuna that demands to take a point on your friends and relatives and teachers. Such events are rare, and think of them as an extreme portrayal to hold the interest in the narrative. As a matter of fact, if our focus is what we are doing, it is very hard to do anything wrong. We normally get into immoral conduct when we are driven by desires. Thus, Krishna gave three-pronged strategy to Arjuna. If you win in realizing yourself, you will exit from the miseries of cyclic nature. A real victory. That's the real victory. Even if it doesn't work out and you win the physical war, you will still have the wealth of this world to rejoice. And if you died in the event you lost the war, and if you died, this body is anyway fungible in this circular underlying reality. Isn't it impossible? Yes, it is. Detaching the actions from outcomes is as impossible as picking up a violin and becoming a musician on the very first day. We need to think Karm Yoga as a skill, the ultimate skill that enables us to learn anything we want and finally know ourselves. Thus, it's a journey. You may already be a Karm Yogi. If learning new skills comes easy to you, you may already be a Karm Yogi. You just didn't know it. And the training could be a bit misplaced. For example, the modern way to accomplish something is to set your eyes on a higher outcome. Maybe you want to become a YouTuber. What you are told to do is chase, say, a million followers. Once you hit that, you are craving for 10 million. Or you want to excel in sports. The coaching is to give you a bigger dopamine for more dollars, more recognition, so that you could let go immediate sensory pleasures in expectation of ever moving line. You work hard to accomplish these goals. Krishna says if you practice Karma Yoga for a worldly goal, you will easily get that. But all such gains vanish in due course. And you again start to accomplish something else, maybe even bigger. You are already a Karma Yogi because you know how to control your senses and focus on actions. You are just striving for the lesser goals. In a way, you are short selling yourself. Why not learn the process of learning itself and access the entire knowledge base that is already hidden in you? In fact, such short selling is the cause of all cycles. It creates a race among humans to do more of the less, to chase more and more of the lesser goals. It makes us seek higher and higher sensory pleasures. Bigger the rise, deeper the fall. Same skill of learning with better coaching can lead us to eternal peace and fulfilling knowledge. The model proposed by Gita is beautiful in the sense it uniquely empowers every individual to overcome the miseries of life, and at the same time, it sets up a stage for a successful career as a residue. Our individual success leads to a world worth striving for. Thank you very much for listening.